Hi, everyone. Welcome to Funding Fundamentals, hosted by Parabolis. This session was developed to shed some light on the recent strategic pause to the NASA SEWP 6 RFP and empower businesses in their navigation of the changes. As you have questions, I encourage you to engage with us in our chat. I also encourage you to put your information in there as well so that you can connect with each other and with myself and our expert guest throughout this engagement. I'm Teresa Moon, Director of Business Development and Marketing for Parabolis. We provide lines of credit to fund your work with the federal government. Today, I am certainly proud of our collaboration with our special guest, David Huff, CEO of OST Global Solutions. Today, we're going to welcome him to share his expert insights on this strategic pause. And David, if you wouldn't mind sharing your own little bit about yourself and then kicking off this conversation for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Teresa. My name is David Huff. I'm the CEO of OST Global Solutions. I've been at OST for about 11 years now, coming up on 12 probably. Before that, I was in the Army. And since then, I've been doing a lot of business development, capture management, proposals. And yeah, I took over the CEO role in November of last year. So that's been pretty cool. And yeah, I've been working on the SEWP 6 opportunity since it really started going live at the industry day last October. So kind of excited to share my experience and how I can help everybody here.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being here. And I know we've got lots of people joining us today. So once again, if you've got questions along the way, pop those into the chat box and we will get to you at the end of this. And David, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand what the SEWP opportunity is, and that's kind of our first group of slides here. This is a very large opportunity, and it's going to take a lot of time and effort to put these proposals together. So I think, for leaders of your business, in deciding whether or not you should pursue SEWP 6, I think you should get a good idea about what the opportunity really is and where it's going. So SEWP 6 is the next generation of SEWP 5. The Solutions for Enterprise-Wide Procurement is one of the longest tenured contracts. I think it was founded in the early 90s. It's a NASA contract, a government-wide acquisition contract. If you're not familiar with that, is a contracting vehicle that everybody across the government, all agencies, can use. So there are only 3 agencies that can issue GWACs, which are NASA, GSA, and NITAC, which is out of NIH. So SEWP 5 is the current contract. It is going to expire, I think, next year sometime in April. So they were hoping to get this thing awarded. They're likely going to have to do a bridge on that, but that has become the largest IT contract. It has more dollars and more transactions than Schedule 70 from GSA. Last year in 2023, SEWP 5 saw over $10.8 billion in work in funded contracts. And so far, and I think they lag a month to 3 months or so in the reporting, but so far they've obligated over $7.5 billion in 2024. So this is a massive, massive contract. Every single agency within the government has used the SEWP vehicle. And a lot of really cool things about it. It is half the price of one of your GSA vehicles. So I believe that GSA GWACs are 0.75% of the total contract value is the fee that your government customers have to pay in order to use the vehicle. The NASA SEWP contract is 0.34% or 0.32%, something like that. So it's pretty significant. SEWP 6 is pretty cool. It has an expanded scope. So we have 3 categories, category A, B, and C. And one of the things to think about when you're evaluating this proposal is that you can bid on every single one of these categories if you meet the minimum criteria. And if you do, you have to submit a separate proposal for each one, right? So category A is your typical hardware, software products and audiovisual support. It has a pretty large scope. This is traditionally for your value-added resellers, as a lot of this work. There are services that go through Category A, but the major focus of the contracts that go through Category A are hardware, software, licenses, things like that. Category B is new. This is the enterprise-wide solutions, and this is for enterprise-wide IT services. It allows for solutions as well. So for products, some of the contemplative task orders that'll go through this category are for agency level enterprise-wide support that may include hardware, software, updates like that. Category C is set aside for small businesses only. So Cat A and B are both small and large businesses. Category C is for traditional IT professional services. I would say that this is the most desirable contract for government contractors to have moving forward, especially since it's a 10-year period of performance. If you become large, if you get one of these category awards and you're very successful and you get large, they will just graduate you to the large business portion of that. They have a category C, they have a group reserved right now. So for anybody in category C that gets an award, once you graduate from your size standard, you will be moved into a new category for that, which is pretty cool. Here's the detail. This is the technical areas within each category. One of the things that we've seen is if you qualify for category B and you're a small business, you likely qualify for category C as well. It's very similar. There's only a couple of the areas that are different, but the proposals are very similar. Category A is very different than both of B and C, but B and C are pretty similar. So if you guys fall within this area, this is something you guys might want to look at more closely. So one of the things to keep in mind is that once you get on award, it's going to be important that you have consistent levels of capital and financial responsibility that you really need to prepare for in advance. So one of the things that I've been seeing across my clients, and so far we've done 18 proposals for different companies. And in the offer volume, there is a responsibility determination that you need to make, right? And you need to provide the information there. And one of the things there is that you will likely have to pay in advance for the hardware and software that you purchase from your OEMs and distributors and deliver that before you get paid by the government. Some of our clients have terms with their OEMs and distributors, but it is something you do need to carry, kind of that line of credit and that ability to carry that purchase before you get paid.
Yeah, and I think you and I in our discussions in preparation for this, you were saying that, category A and B in particular might bear a bigger burden financially in the onset because of the additional things that need to be purchased prior to getting paid. So from our perspective in our industry, it's really important that if you're not currently engaging with your lender, to make sure that you're prepared financially to support what can come, because like you said, there's a huge potential for growth here. You can go from a small business to a large business just by working this contract. And so you've got to make sure that you've got some financial stability and a plan put in place on the financial side to make sure that you can execute the orders that could come out, both from the product or goods side, and then also in addition to the services that are provided in tandem with that. So definitely encourage any of you that don't have a projected long-term financial plan in place, that you're working with your lender to be sure that they're the ones that can get you from the beginning of this through the 10 years, if in the event you're really going to be making a concerted effort to aggressively go after the task orders within this.
Yeah, and one of the things that there's lots of different options that I've seen that people work out, and Parabolas probably has a bunch of these. So your line of credit's your line of credit, right? But there's also contingent lines of credit, and there's also additional contingent lines of credit once you get down on the task orders, right? Because this really gets defined in task orders. So I'm sure that Teresa and Parabolas can help out, and then getting that documentation put together for success. All right, so big question here is I'm assuming a lot of you guys are here to kind of learn about this vehicle and really understand the investment and what it's going to take in order to win a contract. So let's go over that real quick. And what I'm going to try to do is simplify this is and just focus on the big things. There's a lot of little things in the RFP, um, but overall, let's go over what's happened so far, and then what you guys can start thinking about as you consider a bid, no bid on the Soup Six. So there is a strategic pause. This thing was supposed to do in the these proposals were all supposed to be due beginning of September, end of August. There were close to 6,000 questions. The government basically summarized the answers to like a handful of questions, and they weren't very helpful at all. Um, when they issued the strategic pause, they said that they would do an industry day when they restart it. So that has yet to happen yet. They did push out a update yesterday on the SAM.gov opportunity page that they updated the expiration of the opportunity to March of 2025. So they will restart it, and the due date will be before March of 2025. Um, I'd be shocked if it's still on pause uh, middle or end of October. So I think it's going to come unpaused here soon, right? I think we should expect a 30-day due date after the acquisition go live again. Um, I'm not basing that on anything. It's just speculation. I think they gave us 45 days originally to begin with, and then they extended it once, and then it went on strategic pause. So we might be seeing a 30-day deadline after that. We should certainly plan for that, I think. And certainly what I've been advising people who have been sitting on the sidelines and kind of have the fear of missing out, or they were looking at Soup Six, and then they're like, they've been coming back and talking to us like, hey, what do we got to do to win? Can we win? This is the second chance, right? So this rarely happens, and certainly it's good for you if you feel like you can submit a bid and you can meet the minimum requirements. So, all right. So number one, something I want you guys to keep in mind is that the categories A, B, and C each have different minimum requirements, and that's what I'm going to go over. Okay, so in volume one, you have this offer volume. You have a major requirement with getting an Ability One commitment letter. Regardless of whether or not you're a large business or a small business, I would recommend that you go get an Ability One commitment letter. There are specific NAICS codes that it applies to, but just get it. It's easy, and I don't know what's going to happen to this requirement. I asked a lot of questions about this requirement because it was not clear, but it's easy to get. You just need a signed form. Uh, get it. ISO 9001 2015 is required for all categories. If you don't have an ISO certification and you're a small business, you can submit a plan within your volume one to uh, show them that it's in process, that you've engaged a company, um, and that will be good enough. And if you get an award, then they will give you a year after that to get your certification, or you'll be kicked off. You should be able to do that. Usually ISO certs can get done in 3 months, 3 to 6 months, depending on where you are. CMMI certification is required for category B for both large and small businesses. If you are a small business, you also get that year grace period after award. So don't let these things hold you up. If you guys need a recommendation for getting engaged with a company that can help you start along this process, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to make an introduction. I don't make any money off that stuff. I just know that they do a great job, and you guys can do what you need to do. So you we get into this third major requirement, which is the mandatory minimum experience. Okay. NASA treats the minimum experience differently than their past performance. So when we talk about the next volume, we'll go over past performance. So just focused on minimum experience. It is different than past performance, although a lot of people think it's just semantics. It is technically different. So for category A, all you have to do is submit a solution spreadsheet. there are some pretty dumb requirements, I think, about this, but basically it's an administrative paper chase, for lack of a better word, about how many separate products you have to be able to sell and just get it put together. Right. So there, other than that, that's basically it. So with category B, for other than small business, so if you're a large business, you need 4 different projects from 4 different technical areas that are each a minimum of $30 million per project. Okay. For small businesses, it's the same, but it's 3 different projects from 3 different tech areas that are minimum $5 million. This is total contract value. And then if you're a hub zone, VOSB, STVOSB, WOSB, EDWOSB, or 8A, you only need 2 different projects from 2 different technical areas that are minimum $4 million per project. If you're a small business or one of those socioeconomic categories, you can use a what they call REP, relevant experience project, um, for from one of your subcontractors. For category C, very similar, 3 different projects, 3 different technical areas, minimum 2 million per project. And the socioeconomics, I think that's a typo down there at the bottom. That should be 2 million as well. So apologize for that.
$2 per project would be very wide.
2 million, right. Yeah, so when I talk with the pre-RFP and we're qualifying people, we do ask whether or not they can meet the financial capabilities, because we have to prove that in volume 1. And we have to provide some sort of documentation, right? And that's the responsibility piece.
Yeah, I think that's key as well. When you're talking to your lender, make sure that they're able to provide you with a letter of financial capability, so that not only can you meet the demands of the initial onset of the contract itself, but going forward, there are businesses and lenders that can work with you to show the level of growth that they can assist with in terms of a line of credit that increases throughout time based off of your task order wins. Additionally to that, we're talking a little bit before that, you're assisting with them to maximize the opportunity through this 10-year contract. And so what are some of the businesses that you're working with doing to maximize it in terms of making sure that not only are they bidding aggressively, but in presenting not only the financial capability to extend it, what other tactics are people using to really differentiate themselves there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the mission suitability volume that we're going to get to here in a few slides, the government does ask you, and I don't have this on the slides, right? But the government says, hey, for your business development efforts, your sales activities, you need to present an organization that's capable of handling is the verb they use, and I'll talk about what I think that means here in a second. But handling over up to 100 opportunities per day in category A, and 10 per day in category B and C. So what I mean by handling is everybody's like, oh, well, we can't respond to that many. And yes, yeah, you can't. Right. I think what handling means is having the organization and a plan in place to scale onto the contract. And this is your ability to monitor the portal, evaluate opportunities quickly, make that bid, no bid decision, and then start grabbing, sending out your data calls and your requests for pricing and assembling your proposal from your OEMs, distributors, and teammates. So this is, one of the things that I tell small businesses and businesses in general, because it can be large too. This is the government procurement is moving towards these types of vehicles. So it already accompanied, or it already encompasses 75% of all government spending. We as an industry need to get really good at responding to opportunities quickly. And when you're to set up an organization to be successful on a GWAC like this, you need to be fast and agile, and get really good at assembling proposals. So this is absolutely something that should be in your business, your strategic business development plan, is really growing that capacity to be able to respond to RFPs, and particularly on SOUP 6 RFQs that are going to come very quickly. And if you're not if you're not bidding on these things, then NASA's probably going to look at you and look to kick you off the program because they want people who are submitting proposals. So that's their biggest hot button for NASA, for the PMO that
Mhm.
runs SOUP is they their biggest challenge and what really gets them mad is when one of their customers, one of the government agencies, puts on a source of SOT or an RFI or releases an RFQ and no one responds. Man, they get super pissed off
Right.
because that's their money. That's how they stay funded.
Mhm.
They're relying on us, the industry, to bid on things, collect the contract access fee, and keep them in business, right? And
Mhm.
that's the whole point of the SOUP vehicle, right? And then obviously the agencies who are buying didn't get what they needed, and everybody's upset, right? So as you're thinking about as you're evaluating this proposal, think about your ability to scale and grow your business development capability on the vehicle. All right, so let's talk about volume two now. These are the major requirements, right? And again, this is different than volume one. Volume one is total contract value. Okay. In the past performance, they're talking average annual value. I don't know why they switched it, but they did. And those are the requirements. They can be different. So, whatever you submit in your minimum experience volume, your reps, they do not have to be the same as what you submit as your past performance. Don't know why. That's what they said. um, So you get a 10-page limit for this. You can submit a minimum of one, but no more than three. So you get up to three to meet all of these requirements. And the recency is within 3 years of the solicitation release date. They should probably update that, I think, once they unpause this thing, but we'll keep an eye on that. So for category A, you need to cover at least three of the technical areas with one, two, or three past performances. And however many you have, each one has to be an average annual cost incurred by you of $150,000 per project. So if you have a 6 month contract and it was 150 grand, great. I'm pretty sure they're not going to allow you to annualize it with the formula that they gave because if you divide by a decimal, it gets bigger, right? So I think it's either total value if it's less than 1 year or average annual value. So a 2 year contract with 150,000 per year, perfect. That's what they're looking for. Um, other than small business, so larges, you need 2.5 million per project, and all projects together must cover four of the technical areas. And it's pretty much the same as we go down through category B and C. Um, we have to cover with our past projects for past performance. We have to cover a certain number of technical areas total. Once you combine all one, two, or three of them together, and each one that we submit for consideration has to have the average annual cost. Okay, so fairly straightforward, um, but it can be a hiccup. If you're a small business, you can use your subcontractors. All right, mission suitability is volume three. This is where it gets a little more difficult. You have a technical approach of 15 pages and you have a management approach of 15 pages. So the thing about the tech approach is that the way that it's going to be evaluated is that they want to see you provide the entire scope of work. You can use your partner capabilities, right? But they want to see you cover the entire scope in your proposal. So, I've had clients that have fought me on it, and we go back and forth all the time. And the safest place to be is covering everything. And the thing we have to do here, and the critical verb to kind of focus on, is demonstrate our ability to provide the solutions and services for all the technical areas. So what does demonstrate means? It means we either have the partner network. If you're category A, it's the OEMs and distributors. If you're B and C, it is for B, it would be the OEMs and distributors and your partner network of companies that you work with. And for C, it's going to be your partner network of companies you work with. So we need to cover everything. And if you're using a subcontractor or teaming partners um, capabilities, you need to have a subcontract with them. Mission or management approach is the commitment to supply chain risk management, commitment to sustainability, commitment to product and services diversity, and then program management. One of the critical things about in the management approach here is really that plan for you to scale and your ability to handle all of the RFQs that come through on a daily basis. Um, and there's a lot of technology out there, guys, that we've seen people adopt in terms of AI and being able to evaluate capabilities quickly. The workflows set up to distribute the opportunities to your partners and to get those data calls out, those requests for pricing, et cetera, right? The cool thing about this program is that your tech refreshes happen in less than 24 hours. So you can add things on contract daily. And people do. And that's how you build your product and services catalog throughout the vehicle, as opposed to like one of GSA schedules. I think it's like 3 or 4 weeks for the tech refresh process, and it's brutal. So some stuff to think about here. All right, selection process, pretty easy. Everybody who meets the minimum requirements is going to get an award. So the first phase is meet the mandatory relevant experience requirements, and that's the covering the technical areas and covering the total contract value minimum. And then the past performance is you need a rating of neutral or satisfactory. You can use PPQs or you can use your CPARs. And then you got to meet the average annual cost and then achieve a high confidence rating in mission suitability. That's it. Now, if you do those things, you will get an award. So fairly easy. So what does it look like afterward? I kind of talked a little bit about it. But basically, if you get an award, you will get access to what's called the Contract Holder Only Portal, or CHOP. If you want to go to the next slide. Think of CHOP as like eBuy. It's very similar. It's basically just a portal that you log on to and you see opportunities. And when the opportunities come down, you bid on them, right? So all of the RFIs, all of the sources sought, kind of all of the communication between you and the potential customers. There's a lot of customers who are requesting people to come on site and do site visits for them. And you're free to go to all of those, right? So it's a pretty kind of unique place, and you get a little bit more interaction with the government than you typically do on SAM.gov or eBuy, for example. So there's and then of course you just bid on basically everything that you feel like you qualify for. And if you have new products and new services, you go through the tech refresh product process prior to submitting your bid, and you put your bid in, and the evaluation happens, and the awards happen. So it's very, very fast. This is about volume and getting your bids out. So the other thing, it's 0.36%. I think I said 0.34 or 0.32 earlier. So the other thing is in terms of business development, right? So a lot of you guys are probably in some sort of sales capacity, some sort of business development responsibility. You're out there meeting with your customers, right? Almost always our clients tell us when they come talk to us, it's like they go and have this great meeting about their capabilities and how they can help their clients. And the client is like, awesome, man, we really like this. We really like what you have to offer. How can we buy from you? And that's usually where the holdup gets. And being able to say, well, I got Soup 6. It's really simple ordering process. Here it is. It's one of the lowest contract access fees in the government. I don't know of any off the top of my head that are lower. Maybe you guys do, but at 0.3% is very small. So it's very easy. Having this vehicle is something that will facilitate your potential clients and onboarding new clients. And it's just a tremendous tool to have in kind of your business development portfolio, right? With that, a lot of the orders, once you get awarded, you get a pretty short turnaround time, and it's quick. The award happens. All right, cool. Go execute on everything you promised. All the paperwork gets executed. You got to go out and buy everything. a lot of the OEMs and vendors are like, well, you payment upon deliver or payment upon order, and
Mhm.
transfer the money. They do the order, you track it all, you make sure it gets delivered, and a lot of the orders are paid upon delivery or some sort of terms after delivery. So, and then you get paid, right? So it could be, this was a huge problem in COVID when all the supply chains were jacked up, but a lot of it's kind of settled down now. But you do have to stay on top of your government customers and really track those orders down to confirm that they've received everything and that it all works and that you've completed the order. So, there is kind of this program management administrative kind of function of all of the successful companies that are on Soup 5 right now, where it's tracking every piece of equipment, every software, every license, whatever, right? And making sure it gets delivered and it gets inspected and it gets all the paperwork gets done. Um, and of course, there's the inevitable issue where, well, this part's not available until then. Would you accept a partial order? On and on and on, right? So the realities of executing on a lot of these things come at you pretty quick. So certainly plan for success. In terms of being able to grow your business development capability in order to um, be successful in purchasing the orders and being able to float payroll for a month or two or three or six. I've heard longer in some government agencies like Department of Energy can struggle sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, we gotta carry all that stuff, right? Because people, our employees don't really care that you haven't been paid by the government
Right.
yet.
And I think that that's usually the most overlooked in the process. It's understanding what that time frame of lack of payment looks like and planning ahead for it. I mean, with regard to invoicing accurately and promptly, it's going to be key in terms of staying on top of it, right? But to your point earlier about execution being quick turnover on a task order. So if you're required to purchase something that is, very expensive and then have that on top of the payrolls before you actually get paid. It's important to not only have something that's flexible to meet the demand of that, but that's affordable as well. There are tons of important that you do your due diligence on finding the right partner for these purposes early and meeting with them often to make sure that they can meet the demand of the entirety of the project and not just for what's happening with you right now. So lines of credit are always going to be your best option because of the way that it's presented in terms of the flexibility range for how you're billing within government contracting. But so looking at things like factoring can inhibit some of those onset of expenses such as purchasing of equipment and payrolls that go, 30, 60, 90, excess of 120 days without before payment. You've got lots of payroll cycles that amount to a lot, especially when you have highly technical people that are you're staffing for these task orders. And so it's important that you look at something that's not only flexible to meet the demands of it, but that you can borrow against it with what makes sense for the actual work that you're performing. So traditional lines of credit, if you got a line of credit with your bank, it's AR driven, right? So they're looking at your invoices, but that's after the fact. The product that we provide also allows you to utilize your work in progress, which is your unbilled but earned. So it's all of those things that qualify before you actually get paid that you can borrow against the line of credit to participate on that level of it as well. And then for those that are goods or product providers, being able to execute on the delivery order and pull cash forward early, that's important to the process as well. And then it's a rinse and repeat process. That's why we refer to it as a revolving line of credit, because what is unbilled then becomes billed. So it's utilized throughout that process there. So it's allowing you the cash flow that you need to consistently perform, whether those AR or invoices are being paid timely or not. So it allows you the security for the long term on a financial side to really perform at the highest level possible, which we know past performance says if you're able to execute at the highest level, most going to be at the top of mind when the next one comes out and you're bidding in on it. So definitely important to be putting together a financial plan. Ask your lender if these options are available, because these are going to be important for you to be successful throughout the 10-year process of this contract itself. So you talked a lot, David, about being aggressive and bidding, that they don't want you to participate in this unless you're willing to put that level of commitment towards it. So we talked a little bit about a letter of credit being, financial capability being key in certain circumstances, with letting them know that if in the event I'm bidding on it, know that I will be able to financially execute of it. Do you have clients that are utilizing this as they are submitting RFP, that they're providing that within that?
They could, yeah, certainly. So a lot of this kind of gets determined at the task order level and
Mm-hmm.
how large of a purchase it is. People have a lot of different ways to go about doing this. So some of them have negotiated better terms with their OEMs and distributors.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have the lines of credit and the revolving credits.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have the cash, right?
Right. Yeah.
So there's a wide gambit, but yeah, I mean, one of the, as a government customer, like if I were purchasing on soup, I would want to know that whoever I'm going to give the award to can actually perform. And that is one of the things they look for in the risk rating when they do kind of the comprehensive review. Um, a lot of the government still has access to Dun and Bradstreet credit reports, and they pull those.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly there's a lot of things that go into your financial health that the government can go and look at, and they're going to go look at your PPQs and your past performance, your CPARs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, performing on this is something that they look at really closely.
Awesome. So contract access fee, you mentioned earlier that it's lower to engage with this than GSA schedule and others. Is this inhibiting anyone from bidding, or is this something that's really because of how much lower it is that there's maximum participation there?
So this is something that you actually, as a contractor, collect from your government customers.
Mm-hmm.
So you would build this into your pricing. There are, I'm sure there's a lot of folks on the phone. I quickly went through and started looking at some of the companies. So certainly some of the companies on here have the agency strategic sourcing vehicles, and those contract access fees might be as high as 8-9%. I think the highest one I've ever seen is 12. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
government paying the government, which is kind of funny. But
Right.
for the CAF, I believe all of the GSA schedules and GWACs like Oasis Plus and Polaris are 0.75%. So basically, if you sold $1 million of stuff, your price would be $1 million plus the contract access fee. And then the agency that you're bidding to would pay that. You would need to collect it and then remit it back to the NASA suit.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird how it works.
So as far as your process goes internally, when you're assisting clients that are going after this, how far do you extend into the bidding process? Are you helping with that ongoing marketing that you referenced a couple of slides ago for your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a bunch of things that we do. We do a lot of pipeline support. We help monitor people's vehicles. It's oftentimes small businesses don't have uh, enough people in their business development organization to keep up with all the new stuff that's coming out, and we can do it as fractional business development analysts. So certainly this is within our capability. We do it a lot on various GWACs and the schedules to kind of do that initial kind of analysis, like, hey, you should look at this one. There were 15 opportunities that came out today. These two are look like a good fit. We should look at them more, right? Because this is
Hmm.
all about speed. When in SAM.gov, when these things come out, you typically get 30 to 45 days. When these RFQs come out, it might be 48 hours, 24 hours, it might be a week. Like, these things happen fast.
Hmm.
So if you kind of miss a release by a couple hours and you only got 2 days to put the quote together, um, that's a significant chunk of the time. So from our perspective, a proposal is a proposal. Sources sought, RFIs are the same no matter what. So this is something that we help out with. We certainly help with marketing, putting your marketing capability statements together, helping you come up with various marketing messages, pieces of information that you need from your customers if you are meeting with them. So there's a lot we can do here to kind of help. But basically, anywhere on the business development life cycle is something that we can help out with.
Awesome. We have tons of questions that have been coming in throughout, so I'm going to roll from in order of how we've received them. Many of you have asked if we're going to be sharing the recording and the presentation slides. The answer is yes. So if you've registered under the email address that you registered with, you will receive both. So that's ahead. It will be sent to your email. Let's see here.
So I scrolled all the way down because there's a lot of people posting their capabilities, which is great.
Yeah.
The first question is from Chad.
Mhm.
How is NASA Soup going to execute this? If you submit projects to the WOSB standard and obtain an award, will you still have access to the total small business orders? Yes, so that's a great question. If you qualify in the socioeconomic categories, you will have access to all of the opportunities that are within your set aside, within the small business and the unrestricted sides. So, if you're a WOSB, you're going to be able to bid on all of the WOSB set asides, all of the small business, and all of the unrestricted ones. So that's a great question.
I think the next one's for you as well.
Do we need to redo the past performance questionnaire from previous projects after the unpause? Maybe. Not sure. We'll get some more guidance on that. I know that template's a piece of crap and it's been changing everything. So there's a lot of people I recognize on this call, which is pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Sonia asked for categories B and C, can we add large businesses to our CTA now or later after contract award?
Oh, it depends. Real quick on the CTA, this is referring to the FAR definition of the CTA, which is the prime sub relationship. GSA does not do, or I'm sorry, NASA does not do the GSA version of the CTA where there are co-primes. So just FYI, it's super confusing because it's the same name and the same acronym, which is aggravating. But if you're a small business, you should not execute a teaming agreement with a large business. I do not believe you're allowed to do that. So there is confusion, right? And what I mean by that is, as a small business, you're allowed to use, I think, and I'll have to go and refresh this, but I think the way that it works right now, off the top of my head, is I believe you're allowed to use the minimum experience and past performance of your first tier subcontractors, but I think they also have to be small. I'm not 100% sure on that. Where there's ambiguity is whether or not you can use their capabilities within your categories B and C, like as in the tech approach. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like and the reason I say that is because in category A, there's no requirement for you to show that you're an authorized reseller of an OEM or distributor outside of the minimum experience requirements. So we can just talk about all of the OEMs and distributors that we have because those capabilities are available to us to execute and bid and sell on the contract. So there's kind of an equivalency thing there, which is if you're allowed to do it in category A, are you allowed to do it in category B? And this is one of the questions I asked, and they haven't answered it yet. I hope we get clarity on it, but I'd be careful about adding your large businesses to the proposal. I think you're safe. I think you're safe adding their capabilities to your technical proposal and management plan.
Okay. We've got another question. How much coverage of a technical area from a relevancy perspective do you need to obtain credit for that technical area? And then the entire scope or an element of the scope for the technical area.
Man, you guys are asking great questions. So we asked this question too, which is, I think technical area 1 is about tablets and PCs and stuff like that. And I asked a question. I was like, hey, the exact same thing is we have a contract that sold 1 tablet. I have a client that has a Path Performance where they sold 1 tablet. And I was like, the literal definition of that is yes, it qualifies, but they didn't set like a minimum standard, you know what I mean? So I asked that question too. I don't know.
So we'll see when they get back, right? If they answer
Yeah,
that or not.
right.
Um, this one is, can I bid as two separate JVs with two different companies on different NAICS codes?
Oh, no. So as of the requirements right now, you are eligible to submit once as a prime and once as a subcontractor or a member of a joint venture. So theoretically, you can only show up on 6 proposals, which would be you're on 2 proposals for each category. So it's once as a prime or once as a sub or joint venture. So you can do 1 joint venture per category.
How about, can a small business JV have a large business subcontractor?
Uh, so only if you're in the mentor protege. If you're a small business and you form a joint venture with a large business, you are now affiliated for size purposes and you're a large business. So you have to go through the SBA Mentor Protege program in order to not be affiliated for size purposes and for the JV to keep your small business status and your company. So be careful with that.
Okay, I think this one's for us. As a small business where credit is typically extended based on owners and directors' credit worthiness, do you believe including personal financial statements would be useful? No. Not all lenders require you to, as the owner or majority stakeholder in a business, use your personal collateral as the personal guarantee for a line of credit. If you'd like any further information on that, please feel free to reach out to me after this. But no, don't add personal financial statements in with your RFP. It's not necessary.
Correct. Somebody asked, can small business JVs bid for category C? Yes. Mentor proteges can bid on category C as well, as long as the joint venture is considered small. So there's some weird joint venture size rules there, but I haven't seen anybody go over those.
How does an offer address the FAR clause in Volume 1?
Is that the responsibility determination?
That's the
Yeah, I think
that was
so.
it.
I think that's what
Okay.
that means. So number one, showing financial responsibility is a big one. And then if you go and look up that bar clause, it's basically you're a responsible owner that doesn't have any ethics violations. You're not on the debarred list, and that you're generally a good company that meets the standards of their contracts. So it's fairly straightforward, but there is proof that you can provide, and I would recommend that you do provide that proof in volume 1.
We're in the process of getting the AbilityOne commitment letter. We've reached out to a wholesaler to set up the account and get verified, but we're not getting a response despite calling, emailing, and leaving voicemails. Carrier pigeon. Do you have any best practices or advice on how to do this more efficiently? And also, do you have any feedback on specific wholesalers we should avoid or seek out?
That's pretty funny. So I have asked questions about the AbilityOne requirement for this purpose. I've heard some people are having trouble. You just got to keep trying. Beat down the doors. Call a lot of people a lot. Get your
Mhm.
letter. Um, for the OEMs, right? So this is one of the messed up things, and this is one of the very elaborate questions that I asked, is that in the minimum requirement experience section for category A, you are required to submit basically CLINs for 4 technical areas, right? So you have to pick a primary CLIN or a primary technical area and then 3 secondary technical areas. For your primary technical area, you have to submit 1,000 different CLINs. For each of the other 3, you have to submit 100 separate CLINs. They can all be from the same OEM or distributor. The rub, and what I think is messed up, is that they included 30 companies with the approved Soup 6 vendors or OEMs and distributors. And there are over 9,700 right now that are on Soup 5, and it's just completely arbitrary. So
Mhm.
right now, like for the multifunctional devices, is like printers and faxes and things like that. Xerox isn't on the approved vendor list. They're one of the major suppliers, OEMs on Soup 5. And it's like, why'd you leave them off? I've heard that several of those companies will not issue letters of supply or letters of commitment to companies that they have not already worked with.
Mm.
Uh, I feel like this is arbitrary and capricious to some degree. So I hope that they relax that requirement, but it is what it is right now.
Yeah. Can we use the same management approach for all of our proposals, Cat B and C? There's some language in the existing RFP about reusing content.
Yeah, so as long as you are a named, as long as you're the prime or one of the named subcontractors or JV partners, yes, you can. Otherwise, you can't. So, kind of a funny story is that that requirement came from Soup 5. There was a consultant who became very, very rich by reselling the same tech and management approach to everybody, to a lot of people. Paid off their house. It was basically copy and paste from company to company. So, as long as it is your company, as you're either the prime or the subcontractor, you'll be fine. But
Okay.
always, if you don't reach out to us and you use another consultant, you need to make sure that that consultant is specifically liable for their copy and pasting if they do that. We develop all of our stuff from scratch, but there are uh, less ethical consultants that are out there.
Okay. That's good to know, right? This one says, how should we plan our technical response to meet the 4 objectives?
Yeah, so I kind of viewed those 4 acquisition objectives as the like goals throughout your proposal. Because if you look at them, they kind of, if you kind of evaluate them in aggregate, you can meet them by being a great contractor on all of those things. So certainly call them out within your executive summary about what your overall approach is there. Uh, I've not been outlining my responses according to those 4 acquisition objectives, though. I mean, some of them are enabling, I think one of them is enabling the next generation technology, right? That should be a specific section within your tech approach, which is how you're going to accommodate that.
Mhm.
So in some places it's easy, in other places you need to call it out. Um, and it's not particularly difficult, but you should pay attention to it.
This one wants to know if you have your best estimate on when the pause might be lifted.
No idea.
Swami.
I
Oh,
I broke
Swami.
I broke my crystal ball, unfortunately, before this call started. So um, I'm still waiting on it getting repaired.
If we could do that, we wouldn't be here, right? We'd be playing the
It's
lotto.
true.
For category C, do we need to provide responses only related to IT professional services? Does this mean an organization having expertise in staff augmentation services can participate in CAT C?
I actually look at category C as staff aug. So I mean, I think as long as you are providing staff who perform those tasks, that should be perfectly relevant.
Okay. I think some of these are duplicates. What's the role of NAICS in selecting? Do all of our NAICS have to be the same?
There is a NAICS code crosswalk that you have to fill out, and it's essentially to determine your small business status for each of the NAICS codes. They do ask you to provide your primary NAICS code that you would like the contract to be awarded under. Um, so I don't know why, but the question that I have there is that some of those NAICS codes are like employee size standards. So if I was under 1,000 employees, for example, and I chose that as my primary NAICS code, could I then only have to comply with the uh, past performance and experience requirements of a small business, since I am technically small under that NAICS code? So I hope they answer that, but I would think yes, if you're going to bid as a small business at the master contract level, then I would say yeah. But there's a crosswalk. It's to determine what you can see on the CHOP portal, um, and what you're eligible to bid on.
Okay. This one is for past performances in volume 2. What are the criteria for the NAICS for our project to be relevant?
It has to match one of your next one of the in-scope next codes.
Okay.
So I think that's it. There were some weird answers around that caused some confusion, so hopefully they clarify that. But as of now, I think it's just as if it's an in-scope next code for that category, it should count.
And then last one, do we need to respond to all technical areas on all categories, or can we choose which category to respond to?
You technically don't. Uh, I think that you would be hard pressed to get a high confidence in your technical evaluation if you didn't. So I would say yes. If you don't do it now, then you need to figure out a way to get a partner in there, or at the very least, and probably the worst, least desirable approach would be to talk about your plan to grow within that area. But I would say you should work on getting every technical area covered in your tech approach.
Okay. Okay, we've gotten a couple that have flown through. So let's do one more, and then anyone else that has a question that didn't get answered, if you look at the screen, you've got David's information there as well as mine. I encourage you to reach out to both of us anyway, but of course, if you have questions that didn't get reached today, you can always reach out to him directly. So do the PPQs need to cover all the task areas since we are limited to only a few PPQs?
No, it only needs to cover what you talk about in your path performance volume. So if your contract that you're putting in your past performance volume covers 2 of the technical areas, your PPQ should say that too.
Okay, great. Hey, David, I very much appreciate your expertise
Yeah.
today in putting together this information for this great group. We've had a very large group today, so I'm proud to have collaborated with you on this. Everyone who's with us now, again, reminding you that we will be sending you the recorded version of this plus the slides for your perusal at a later time. And I encourage you to reach out to both of us, both on our emails, and we're both on LinkedIn as well. So appreciate everyone being here today. We'll definitely be doing this again soon because David's working on a lot of stuff all the time. So we're going to have him back again. I appreciate you and your team. I know you're very busy right now. So thank you so very much. Hope everyone has a great week.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one. See y'all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.